Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Dr. Laverne Lewis, TriMet's board president. Welcome. Welcome to TriMet's Board of Directors meeting for April 22nd, 2026. And it's raining. And it's cold. It's cold. We are gathered again today here at One Main Place for our TriMet boardroom meeting for our April 2026 board meeting. We are also live streaming our meeting on YouTube. Hello to those who are watching. All members of the TriMet board are here in person. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. Small delay with our TSCC meeting this morning, but thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting. I saw many of you come up in the elevator, but thank you. Before we proceed with the official TriMet board meeting, I would like to invite up our TriMet Chief Safety Security Officer, Andrew Wilson, for a safety moment.
Well, thanks, everybody. This is becoming a bit routine, and that's okay because your safety matters to us. Safety is our highest priority here at TriMet. And I just want to kind of remind people of kind of how we can stay safe together in this room. So first off, I'll let you know that there are many CPR certified folks. I am one of them in this room. Who else is CPR certified? I know members of our SRT are, absolutely. So well done, guys. I will also say we have an AED in the back of the room, just off the right side of that wall. Who would volunteer to get an AED in the event of an emergency where we need it? I need a hand. All right, we got some folks up here. And Eileen, you're here the entire meeting, I know, so you're going to be definitely there. But we'll have multiple people headed there, so that's good. We also have kind of an evacuation route, which is the staircase down just on the other side of this wall. You can head down to out in front of the Starbucks. That's our staging area. There will be lots of people guiding you if you need accessibility to get down there. We will take care of that as well. So we just want to make you aware of some of the things that we've been thinking about to keep everybody safe in this meeting. I do also need a person to call 911 in the event of an emergency, and Nessa will do that. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and take a moment for really briefly to give you a little bit extra on a safety moment. Hopefully, those of you that got here rode transit or maybe are riding transit on the way home. Public safety is important to us here at TriMet, and we do have a security operations center that's fully functional and that can take a call if you see anything that makes you concerned about your safety or concerned about a community member. We want you to get in touch with our public safety security operations center. There are 4 ways to do that. I quiz the executive team on this all the time. The 4 ways, they always get it right now because it's routine and we want to have that. But I want every rider to know that you can get a hold of our Security Operations Center through 238-RIDE, either texting. You can call them and dial option 9 to get a hold of them. You can also go to TriMet.org, and there's a shield button that you can click on. You can chat directly with folks about safety and security or any kind of thing that's making you uncomfortable on the system. And also, you can use our blue light phones. So lots of different ways to get in touch with your Security Operations Center. So let's help each other stay safe on the system and see something, say something. And with that, we'll give it back to the board.
Thank you, Andrew. We will begin with a public forum for those who are here and present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public, I think my voice is there. Members of the public who wish to testify this morning and provide testimony who cannot be here will be joining us virtually after we have heard from those who are present and have signed up. For all of those offering testimony, please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. We will also ask that comments be limited to the 3 minutes, and please note that there is a time indicator to help you reply with this request, and we ask that you respect the time because there are others behind you that would like to testify as well. If you are unable to limit your comments, please feel free to provide written documentation and staff will pick that up for you. Also, you can reach all of the board members on the webpage, and our emails are available. Also, please know that we appreciate your testimony, and if you ask a question, ask for additional information, or raise an issue, it will be appropriately addressed by the general manager, who will ask staff to get back with you. This morning, we're going to do invite up three at a time, and I will call your name. Please come up. First is Chris Hudson. Thank you, Chris. Joshua Landry, hope I pronounced that correctly. And Marcy Hughes. And when you're ready to speak, in front of you, just press the little emoji there with the little sign on the side of his ear. Okay. Okay, Chris, you may proceed.
Good morning. My name is Chris Hudson, and I'm someone who often relies on TriMet services. I'm also someone who understands that the emails that TriMet sends out have surveys with optional comment sections that have no character limit. I have often utilized that many times. I have enjoyed how accessible and reliable the service of TriMet has been, but the proposed upcoming cuts have me incredibly concerned. What I have read from TriMet's own projections is that service cuts and reductions are planned not just this year, but are projected to continue into the next few years as well, with additional cuts. Cutting lines and service from TriMet is not cool, it is not chill, it is not boss, it is not dope, it is not lit, it does not slap, it is not cooking, but it is cooked. Cutting lines and service from TriMet should be a last case scenario, and I personally feel like it's a completely avoidable one. What is often overlooked is how much people plan their days around TriMet services. When that service is cut, it can change the trajectory of people's days and even lives. I have heard fellow riders bemoan about having to transfer buses and wait an hour for the next connection. It's unacceptable for a city that prides itself on transit to have that kind of service failure, and it fails the very people who rely on it. And not only the people who rely on it every day, but these proposed cuts hurt visitors to the city as well. If the city is not as accessible by transit, it might not draw as many tourists during the very nice spring and summer months. Making our transit system bigger, better, and safer is a way to bring tourism dollars back into the city. And personally, it's crazy to me that that's not a viewpoint more strongly advocated for. It deeply saddens me that something like public transit has to be run like a business, and when it fails, there is no urgency or real solution, and yet, we as a city can easily come up with $365 million if a billionaire buys the NBA team and wants taxpayers to renovate the stadium. It's insanely disappointing that there is not only no solution, but no growth mindset to do something and make public transit better and make this entire region more accessible for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Joshua?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joshua Landry. I represent Jansen Beach Mortgage and the Hayden Island Neighborhood Network. I'm here to speak today about TriMet's role in the interstate bridge replacement project and its proposed light rail expansion to Vancouver, Washington. I live on Hayden Island, and on Friday, I received this letter here from the IBR stating that I, like many of my neighbors, will lose our floating homes. Like many in my neighborhood, I am a low-income homeowner. I sacrificed and saved for over a decade to afford my home. I purchased it myself. I own it outright. I have no mortgage. Even beat my folks to to home ownership, and I've never been more proud of anything in my life. And then 3 days after that moment, I experienced my lowest. A massive barge appeared outside my house, 5 feet from my property, blacking out my windows and pumping exhaust into my house during exploratory drilling for this very project. It remained for 20 days without consent or permission. This raises serious questions about process, consent, and respect for private property for any conversations of acquisition. This is not just about infrastructure, it's about displacement. The expansion of I-5 through Albina destroyed homes, displaced families, dismantled a community that has yet to recover. That history is not distance, it's a warning about the lasting human consequences of infrastructure decision and displacement. There's also the broader equity issue and how the benefits of these projects are distributed. Policies such as Washington House Bill 1491 create significant tax incentives for development within a half-mile of light rail, aligning with major redevelopment in Vancouver's waterfront district. While that may drive future investment in Vancouver, the immediate cost is borne by Oregon residents through acquisition, disruption, and loss of low-income housing, while the financial upside is realized across the river. For me, it means losing my home, not by choice, but by force. And that harm is intensified by where I live. I live in an island. Hayden Island is geographically constrained with limited access and a finite housing supply. There is a moratorium on floating homes in Oregon, meaning comparable housing simply does not exist. Displacement without replacement. Have we learned from any of these past mistakes? As TriMet considered this budget and enroll in this project, I ask you to consider who's being asked to sacrifice and whether all alternatives have been exhausted to avoid displacing the very people it serves. Public infrastructure should connect and strengthen communities, not remove people from them. I urge TriMet to reconsider its funding priorities related to this project and ensure that progress does not come at the cost of Oregon residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joshua. Marcy?
Good morning. My name is Marcy Hughes. I am the Program Coordinator of Metropolitan Family Service Project Linkage. MFS is a private nonprofit organization that values community and believes that it is strengthened by a caring exchange, recognizing that it is our duty and our privilege to take care of each other. I'm here today to ask that 5310 funding for Project Linkage services supported by Ride Connection, including our volunteer driver program and Rideabout shuttles, be maintained in the fiscal year 27 budget. Volunteers are an integral part of the Project Linkage team, and each volunteer brings their own unique combination of skills, talents, and interests, which enrich our program and our community. Project Linkage has provided accessible transportation services for older adults and people with disabilities since 1987, and as part of the Ride Connection network, we serve residents of North and Northeast Portland for door-to-door rides. We also operate Rideabout shuttle services in North and Northeast Portland, as well as in mid-Multnomah County. Our Rideabout shuttles pick up people from their homes and take them to common destinations, such as food banks, grocery stores, shopping centers, and to local destinations for recreational activities, with each destination published on a monthly calendar. For more than 35 years, Project Linkage has partnered closely with Ride Connection, and our volunteer program wouldn't exist as it does without this partnership. Because Ride Connection focuses on service aspects such as driver training, new customer registrations, taking ride requests, service planning, and tracking of vehicle maintenance schedules, Project Linkage staff and volunteers are able to focus on providing exceptional service and meeting the needs of individual riders. We engage volunteers who, either using their own vehicles or Ride Connection-owned vehicles, regularly drive at least once a week to provide door-to-door and sometimes door-through-door rides. Our volunteers tend to stay engaged for a very long time, so they become familiar with our riders' circumstances, individual needs, and preferences. It's like this on our Rideabouts as well, but the connections are also made among the riders. Friendships are formed, family members schedule trips together so they can meet up, and a community is built on the bus. Riders regularly share their contact information with one another so they can connect outside of the whoopee bus, as it has affectionately been called. The challenges that older adults and people with disabilities face in getting around isn't something that most people think about. Riders tell me how grateful they are to have found us because they themselves weren't aware that service like this existed until they needed it. Without Project Linkage transportation services, many of our riders wouldn't be able to get where they need to go, as they may no longer feel safe driving, may only qualify for conditional eligibility with TriMet Lift, or may not be able to afford bus fare. One of our riders recently shared with us what the Rideabout service means to him. Quote, "Now at 84 years old, I'm finding so much peace and security using your bus. We all have our reasons and stories, but just saying thank you doesn't fully express our gratitude. Using your bus has been my escape and peacetime. The melanoma I have will not stop. My eye doctor insists on surgery, and my primary doctor says I need to see a hematology oncologist. I usually avoid doctor appointments as getting someone to help me is becoming so difficult. Project Linkage makes such a big difference. We all have our reasons and story, and this is mine. I would invite you all to contact me if you want to ride along on one of these trips. They're super fun.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Joshua, and thank you, Chris. If you have any documents or notes, staff will be happy to take those for you, for us. Okay, Jock Mills, Kashea Wilson Anderson, and Elaine Wells.
Does this work? Good morning. I'm Jock Mills. You've seen me a number of occasions in the past 4 years. I first want to just mention the safety notifications. Those are great. I thought of you today as I rode the bus down and took my hood off as I crossed the street. That was one of the pieces of advice we got at an earlier meeting, and I'm living by that piece. It's unfortunate that you're not having the same safety outlook for some of your bus lines. I rode the number 17 bus down today. There were 23 people on that bus before it got to Broadway. One was mobility impaired. There were 6 St. Mary's students. There were quite a few people who were looking like they were going down to work, and it was an extremely racially diverse crowd. This is a momentous occasion. You're completing a 4-year campaign that you've engaged in taking away a 118-year-old transit line that serves the corridor up through 3 Northeast neighborhoods. I've written an obituary. I believe you have it in front of you. I urge you to read it. You're just deconstructing 118 years of history. You focused on the people who aren't riding the bus. That was your ridership problem. You ignored the people who are riding the bus. And I just described who they are. This is not the way to shepherd public resources. I want to commend you. What a great party you had for the retirement of the MAX trains. What's your party going to be for the funeral of the number 17 bus? I can't wait to see it. That's your legacy. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kashea Wilson Anderson, and I am with the Urban League of Portland. I operate the Senior Activities Program at our Senior Center, located on MLK in Killingsworth in Northeast Portland. Our goal as an organization is to empower the lives of African Americans and others through civic engagement, representation, housing, workforce, youth programs, and specifically in this conversation, our health and older adult programs. Part of the success of our older adult programs and working with seniors is through our partnership with the folks from Ride Connection, who provide a bus that we use to transport our clients 5 days out of the week to not just our Urban League Senior Center, but to locations such as going shopping, medical appointments, casino trips where they have a lot of fun, or going just to places like the park or museums or any location where our older adults get the opportunity to go out and about, whereas they would never have the chance to do so without a program such as ours. Part of my reason for testimony is because I need to be more than plain in expressing how cutting funding from Ride Connection will disastrously impact the programming that not only the Urban League has when it comes to our elders, but other programs that deal with older adults as well. As it was mentioned before, we don't necessarily give enough thought and attention to the needs of older adults. Our program provides an opportunity for them to not only receive free rides and go to places that they never would attend without it, but it also provides them an opportunity to interact with each other, to build communities, to reconnect with people that they may have not seen for over decades. And it's going to help fight social isolation for our older adults. And these kind of programs are programs that you do not find very easily. And I'm sure that everybody has been here in this room and has seen those giant green buses traveling around. That's us and our partnership with Ride Connection. And I can only further state that we transport on average 2,700 rides for our seniors each and every single weekday, and sometimes on weekends. And furthermore, the one thing that I need to add about the importance of preserving programs like this is that it's not just going to impact our older adults today. We are all going to be there at some point in time in our lives. And doing and preserving these kinds of transportation programs are not just going to help the older adults in our lives, they're going to help us when we get there ourselves. So I encourage everybody to please continue to support funding Ride Connection and the Urban League Transportation Program.
Thank you, Jock, and thank you, Kasha. Elaine?
Good morning. My name is Elaine Wells, and I had the honor, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Save some time. Had the honor of serving as the Executive Director of Ride Connection for almost 30 years. I want to share a little history with you. An employee of TriMet actually started Ride Connection almost 40 years ago, before the passage of the ADA, to meet the transportation needs of individuals who were having trouble finding transportation, and that TriMet was having trouble serving older adults and people with disabilities. The intent of the Ride Connection Network has always been to provide assisted service prior to those individuals needing to rely on the more costly ADA service. We were stronger together at that time. TriMet would collaborate with Ride Connection to test innovative ideas and determine what would work well for those communities. Successful programs continued, including volunteer programs, travel training on public transit, group shopping and recreation shuttles, and support for smaller nonprofit organizations to provide transportation services to their clients. TriMet and Ride Connection was a national model for collaborative success. In the past few years, I've been sad to learn that TriMet has backed away from a highly effective cost reduction strategy with Ride Connection that in previous decades reduced the burden of Lyft and saved TriMet millions of dollars. Lyft paratransit services are vital to our region, but cannot meet the needs of older adults and people with disabilities. As recently as 2018, TriMet was funding Ride Connection Network at a rate of $2.75, $2.75 million a year as a cost-effective investment to help contain the Lyft budget, which at the time was $35 million. In the years since, TriMet has reduced that support to the network down to $500,000. Lyft's budget is now $70 million. The cost reduction strategy works because the Ride Connection provides rides at half the cost of Lyft. I implore you that you reverse this decision and reinstate your commitment to Ride Connection and the Human Services Transportation Network that is so vital to older adults and individuals with disabilities in our region. Let us again work strategically to maximize resources, fund Ride Connection to support older adults and individuals with disabilities before needing Lyft service. Ride Connection keeps those individuals off Lyft. Fund Ride Connection services more holistically, working proactively to keep vulnerable individuals engaged in their communities, and showcase the value and success of our partnership by providing solutions to mitigate the impact of fixed route service cuts for our most vulnerable community members. We look forward to continue the opportunity to partner with TriMet to maximize resources in these challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Cachet, and thank you, Jock. Next, Ben Hecko, Alex Williams, and Jeremy Simmer. Ben, you may go first, yes. Okay.
Beautiful, thank you. First off, good morning, everyone. Specifically, good morning to you, the Board of Directors. My name is Ben Hecko, and I've been a team member and field supervisor for the Safety Response Team since August of 2022. Our team provides direct assistance to riders across the system, whether it's a simple question about directions or directly connecting vulnerable individuals to different social services across the Tri-County area. Our team responds with kindness and compassion. I'm here today because my teammates and I are forming a union. I spoke to you in December of last year asking for TriMet to support the Safety Response Team, as our team provides valuable services to both TriMet workers and the public. Ultimately, as the customers of this contract, it will be TriMet who determines whether or not our team is treated with respect by our employer. I personally believe that the formation of this union is requisite to the continued success of our team. Our union matters because it provides greater support for the people who make this team succeed. Expressing compassion in the face of vicarious trauma and human suffering is draining, and my teammates face these difficulties daily. A union will help our team to better support ourselves through greater accountability and more agency when working with our employer. Speaking of our employer, Portland Patrol Incorporated, they have not been held accountable by TriMet regarding their end of the contract. The TriMet service contract lists wages that PPI is supposed to pay, but they pay less to a significant number of team members. In 2026, the contract dictates that the base rate for team members is $27.50 per hour, whilst field supervisors receive $29 an hour. In reality, many members of the team are being compensated at a rate substantially lower, starting at $22 to $24 an hour. Additionally, the contract states that PPI must pay us overtime pay for any hours worked beyond 10 in a given day. They do not. Lastly, to address these concerns, our team put forth an announcement to PPI in the fall of last year demanding that the company recognize our union. They have continued to delay and refuse meeting with our union over half a year later. PPI's actions have contributed to a sense of fear amongst our team members. This includes committing what we believe were unfair labor practices and discrimination against union activity at work, and we have filed charges with the National Labor Relations Board to defend our rights. Our request for the TriMet Board of Directors is simple. Issue a request for proposals for the Safety Response Team contract. Help choose an employer that will live up to our team's goals and respect our right to organize a union. Thank you for your time. Oh, well, yeah, of course. Hey, Blazers got a playoff win for the first time in, what, 6 years? Oh, that game was unbelievable. Yeah, I assure you. Hey, no, hey, this is partially a bad hair day cover and partially in celebration, so I'll take it.
Have it on? Very good.
Hello, my name is Alex Williams. I've been a member of the safety response team since February of 2024. Ever since I joined this job, it's really helped me to help other people in ways I never thought possible. Whether it's something as simple as helping someone find directions to the airport or as major as saving someone's life during an overdose. I'm here today because my team and I are not being treated with the same amount of respect that we are expected and do give to everyone we meet on the system every day. Many of my coworkers and I have been living under constant fear and anxiety, fear of retaliation from management, fear of losing our jobs at a moment's notice, and anxiety over fluctuating and inconsistent sick time and PTO, paid time off. We've filed unfair labor practices charges against Portland Patrol to defend our rights to form a union and to speak up. I want to provide an example of why we need a voice at this job. Because after we formed a union and announced it to PPI, they decided to change our PTO systems from front-loaded to accrual. They did this without talking to any of our team members, without notifying any of us that it was going to happen. And when they implemented it wrongly. It meant that coworkers who had time off listed on their job profiles would take time off, but not see that reflected in their paychecks. And it meant that many people would see maybe 40 hours of PTO available, and then the next day it was in the negative. I personally had informed my management that I had planned to take a vacation later this year, and was informed that once the year turned over to put in a request for that time and it would be approved. I then, once the year turned over, found that I had no PTO to request. I had spent money on that vacation in advance, and I am now unable to afford that vacation and am now out the money that I have spent. Our employer should not be able to make these decisions unilaterally without asking any of our team members, especially not in the middle of our end-of-year holidays. We formed our union so that we can address these issues and so that our team members can be treated fairly and we can work with PPI to make the system work better for everyone. For over the past 6 months, they have refused to meet with us. Our request to you is to issue a request for proposals for the safety response team contract. We want you to choose an employer that will respect our union and work with us so that we may help others on the system to the best of our abilities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Jeremy?
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Jeremy Simmer. I'm a researcher with SEIU Local 49, a union of about 15,000 workers in Oregon and Southwest Washington, united for good jobs and respect. I'm here to support Ben and Alex and all of the other SRT members who are forming their union, and a supermajority of them have already committed to doing so. They are asking for a fair process for recognition of their union, the same kind that would be available to TriMet employees. In response, Portland Patrol Incorporated has declined to meet and instead has held anti-union employee meetings. The month after testifying to this board, one SRT member was terminated, raising serious concerns and questions about retaliation. We're disappointed, but frankly, not entirely surprised. Portland Patrol Incorporated was originally a Portland created company, but it was acquired in 2022 by William Guidice, who previously worked for his family's business in Southern California, Lions Security, which was sued by its employees 3 times for alleged wage theft between 2019 and 2023. There are additional details about the company in the fact sheet and the written statement that I submitted that I hope is in your packet. In addition to the wage and hour concerns and the unfair labor practices that Ben and Alex and other SRT members have spoken to, we believe this sole source contract does not comply with state law and with TriMet's contracting rules, which you updated last year. Those statutes and rules only allow sole source contracts under certain criteria. In 2023, TriMet said that Portland Patrol was uniquely qualified to provide SRT services, in part due to its experience with the Downtown Portland Clean and Safe program. However, other security contractors do similar work in the area, including Garda World, which by 2023 had already taken over the Clean and Safe contract. And while TriMet's updated rules limit sole source contracts to only 2 years, Portland Patrol hit the 2-year mark last summer. So we believe it is overdue for TriMet to put this contract out for competitive procurement and to choose a qualified contractor that will pay its employees fairly and respect their right to bargain collectively. Several security companies in the area meet these criteria as listed in SEIU's online Responsible Contractor Guide. Each would be required to retain current SRT employees for the well-being of the workers and for the continuity of TriMet services. In closing, when TriMet riders seek help from Safety Response Team, they see SRT members in TriMet uniforms and following TriMet directives. Now, when SRT workers need backup to improve their jobs in TriMet operations, we need you to lead on this and to not tell them to go talk to someone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Ben, Alex, and Jeremy. Okay, we have Mark Bradley, excuse me, and Melody Fry. Mark Bradley. Oh, there you are. Thank you, Ruth. Okay. Okay, Mark, are you ready? Give you a moment there. Okay. Okay, press the little, yes. Ruth will help you. There. Okay.
Hello, my name is Mark Bradley, and I just kind of want to echo with the safety improvements onto the highway, which has become increasingly dangerous with frequent road rage incidents and serious safety concerns. It's time to prioritize the reconstruction project. Key investments should include repaving the entire roadway surface, adding more crosswalks with full traffic signals for pedestrian safety, and replacing center turn lanes with landscaping, median trees, and placing street lights as well. Restricting left turns and designated U-turns with exceptions for trucks which can use alternate routes. Eliminating flashing yellow arrows allowed when only protection green arrows, and add a flashing right turn arrow instead to beltway green arrow for left turn approaching, and a blink out sign for no turn on red when pedestrians are approaching. Adjusting speed limits to be reduced to 35 to slow down traffic. And upgrading all signals to McCain heads with reflective borders, and add bike and bus signals. And and build a new roadway bypass go around Shoe Park and baseline around Dairy Creek to avoid downtown Hillsborough. Address the freight trains, either permanently discontinue them on TV Highway or build a grade separation bridges or upgrade with quad barriers. And someday in the future is rails to trails. Expanding capacity with either widening 7 lanes or investing with better sidewalks and additional street lighting for safety at night. Construction is expected anytime before Apex 57 is gonna be open in fall 2030. When the fifth and baseline's the worst intersection lower borders between Beaverton and Hillsborough. We need to think about building light rail bridge as soon as possible, because it's a busy street with roadways incidents, and times to the signals are not good at all. Screws up everything, needs to stay coordinated. Supposed to be built in 1996 before it opened in 1998. And it's 100 trains per day, which is way too many. And it's not safe intersection at all. Used to be more dangerous with stop signs and the steep hills back in the day. We need to make safety happen as possible.
Thank you,
Did I
Mark.
do good?
You did very well. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay. Melody, you can start.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Melody Fry. I live at the Yards on Nato Parkway, right behind Union Station. I want to talk about the proposed cuts to line 16. Normally, the pedestrian bridge is how people here get to the transit mall and connect to the rest of the system. But the elevator on that bridge has been broken for about 2.5 years. For many people, that means the bridge is unusable. It's not usable at all. If you cannot take the stairs, then that connection is gone. Line 16 is the alternative. It is the only way people in my building can still reach transit when the bridge is not accessible. So when you reduce that bus to just a few trips a day with no weekend service, you are taking away the only workable option that remains. That has real consequences. It means people with mobility issues and the elderly at the yards and nearby buildings are effectively stranded, not inconvenienced, cut off. We are talking about hundreds of residents in this immediate area, including seniors and people with disabilities. For them, this is about basic access to transit, groceries, medical care, and daily life. The elevator situation might look temporary on paper, but after 2.5 years, it is not temporary. It is a current reality. If service is cut based on the idea that people can use the bridge, that does not reflect what is actually happening. At a minimum, any decision about line 16 should be tied to restoring full accessible use to that bridge. Until that happens, the area does not have normal access to the system. I am asking you not to move forward with these cuts as proposed. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Melody. And thank you, Mark. Okay. Okay, having received no other public testimony, we'll go to the virtual testimony. Okay. Virtually, we have Joe Kuzler. Joe, are you available? There you are. Welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam President. Joe Combs. I want to thank you for time and space to talk today. As somebody who comes on ride TriMet next month for occasion for other events. I wish that you would work with the air show to promote your transit service, because I think it's important that you have more people riding TriMet and using public transit to get around. I do want to take a moment, though, and address something that your General Manager, Sam Deuce Jr., said recently, where he said about the Columbia River crossing, quote, "Together we are building more than a bridge. We are building a transportation system that connects people, supports economic growth, and strengthens the future of an entire region," end quote. With all due respect to TriMet leadership, I don't think cutting paratransit and bus routes is building a transportation system that connects people, supports economic growth, and strengthens the future of an entire region. I think instead you should cut your involvement in the Columbia River crossing, also known as the Interstate Bridge Project. And here's why. Number one, the people of my state of Washington pretty much do not want TriMet, Max Light Rail, in our state. We don't want it because, frankly, the length of your light rail is limited. It's at grade, and then there's a bridge called the Steel Bridge. That's a drawbridge that when it goes up and down, the entire network is cut. Also, Representative John Lay gave a 4-part interview to We the Governed on YouTube. I would highly encourage you to watch all 4 episodes of Representative Lay's interview. I am not a Republican, but I happen to agree with most of the views there. Another reason why you should step away from the Columbia River Crossing Project is CTRAN provides excellent bus connections between Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, and the capacity seems to be appropriate for that. Finally, I want to make sure that TriMet focuses on what makes TriMet great, which is its bus network and current transit network. For instance, last year when I went to the Oregon International Air Show, I needed to use both Max and buses to get there. Why? Because I wanted to stop by Krispy Kreme and grab some donuts and coffee before the big air show. So your current system is one that connects people, supports economic growth, and strengthens the future of the entire region. Please protect your current system, please. And I want to thank all of you for your public service. I know it's hard to start testimony, and I know it's hard being criticized up there, but it is much appreciated what you do, especially your operators and security. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, feedback. I'll try it again. It's a little echo.
Governor's work group and in any way that is helpful. So please let us know and let the cat know. The LIFT subcommittee provided an update on the upcoming LIFT changes that we have all discussed and ways that they're communicating that generally with riders. We talked about some work of the wayfinding subcommittee, and concern was raised about the Falcon text-to-speech devices not having Braille, but the staff clarified that they will have Braille, so that was a great update. One bright spot is that TriMet Lift was awarded the Innovator Award from our software vendor Trapeze, recognizing TriMet Lift as the most innovative system in the country from more than 200 different systems. So congratulations. That's great news. TriMet Lift also continues to work with PSU Orientation and Mobility Program to develop tactile maps for blind and low vision riders to help them navigate some of our most complex transit centers. And we will be evaluating the first maps very soon next week at the Interstate Rose Quarter Transit Center. So that's also good news, and we'll see, get a lot of feedback and good input and see how we can incorporate that. One point of concern that was raised is about the Accessible Transportation Fund Advisory Committee funding process, and a note that $4 million in human services STIF funds that TriMet has historically contributed to ATFAC allocation process will be removed from the committee's allocation pool, and TriMet will retain those funds for lift service. My request is that we could have a broader briefing for the board of the money flows, not only to ATFAC, but also to Ride Connection and to other service providers, and also to more comprehensively understand where the money is coming from for each of those services and who is being served by each of those services, and the efficiency of each of those services. Because I understand it's a complicated picture, and I think I don't have a total sense of it yet. And so if we could have a fuller briefing on all of that, and also in light of the Ride Connection testimony this morning, I would really appreciate that. Great, thank you. And then generally, we talked about the TriMet 2030 strategy and the guide to the agency's priorities and investments and service improvements over the next 5 years. This was the CAT's first introduction to that strategy, and so we look forward to continuing to understand that and the changes and how the CAT can support. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions, comments, feedback for Erin? Seeing none, hearing none. We'll now ask Director Kellogg to present a report from the recent cash.
Definitely. All right. Good morning, everybody. So, yeah, the crash committee met last week. We meet generally twice a year. And as we've covered in the past, the committee reviews incident summaries, video evidence, and cause analysis to provide feedback to TriMet's safety team. So, it's a great committee, well run by Jason Little as our chair. I also want to shout out Kitty Kong for putting together the reams of video and reports and getting that all distributed out. Also want to cite Mike Mullins for his service on the committee. He recently retired from Ride Connection. He's been on this committee longer than I have, so kudos to him, and then thank you to Andrew for running the last meeting. So at that meeting, we reviewed 7 crashes. I believe half of them were fatalities, which of course you don't enjoy seeing. But what the service on this committee has really brought to my attention is the amount of infrastructure that exists on our system, just the sheer amount of real estate, and trying to keep access control around those tracks. The video, one of the videos that I saw was terribly disturbing in that it started with juveniles jumping over a short fence to cross 2 sets of tracks to get to the platform. And they stopped on the tracks and literally danced at the direction of the train coming at them. It was almost unbelievable, until the whole purpose of that video was there was a guy listening to something at thousands of decibels because he had his AirPods in, and he literally walked past the arm that comes down on the road, the big red blinking lights, and walked, thank God, a half a second late into the train. And he got smacked and sent, 10 feet in the air. but just unbelievable the amount of accidents that happen that we just, they're human element kind of things, right? We could spend $1 billion and still not make this system, completely inaccessible to people. And, other problems, there are people with substance abuse who, whether intentionally or not, fall asleep on our tracks, and, the operators come along. These folks are going 40 miles an hour, try to stop a several-ton vehicle, and it's impossible, right? And so it's traumatic for them. It's terrible obviously, for the person who gets hit. So anyway, I'm going on a bit of a rant here. The good news is that there are a lot of partners for TriMet in addition to TriMet itself. Safety campaigns are nearly continuous. Be aware of the train, and we do everything we can when we set up pedestrian crossings across the tracks to say, hey, pay attention here. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. Good committee, lots of work to do.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions, feedback for Robert? Okay, thank you. Let's see, where are we? We have mics now. I'll turn now to Director Kim somebody's phone, to provide a report on last week's Finance and Audit F&A Committee meeting. Director Kim?
Test. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. We've had 2 Finance and Audit Committee meetings since our last board meeting. The first meeting was held on March 25th. We reviewed the fiscal year 26 budget transfer that was approved at the March board meeting. And the CFO presented the updated budget balancing scorecard used to project the 15-year forecast. Our discussion included enhancing the scorecard to show a roll forward from the prior deficit projection to the current projection, allowing readers to more clearly understand the cumulative changes over time. The spending reductions in general and administrative costs, as well as the proposed service changes, will be presented in the FY27 budget, and it will come before the board in May, along with the reconciling actions taken. Related to our reductions in service cuts, it was also discussed that some other transit systems, such as Denver and Las Vegas Transit, are also looking at service and personnel cuts to balance their budget over the next few years. Our second meeting was held on April 14th. A. Bailey, our external audit firm, presented an overview of the upcoming fiscal year 26 external audit. So they will start their audit interim field work at the end of April, and then they will come back for the final audit field work in August to wrap up the audit end of October. The firm will present the results of the external audit in the October board meeting. And also, our internal auditors gave us a thorough update on internal audits the team had completed over the last year, as well as business process improvements that were completed. And lastly, the CFO led us through an updated budget scorecard that reflected recent changes in our operations, in addition to recent service changes that have impacted the district's overall deficit. The presentations included how the balanced budget scorecard will change if the board approves upcoming service changes and the FY27 budget that will come before us for approval at the May board meeting. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. At this time, any questions, feedback for Director Kim? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, tech break, so that we can get our voices back.
Some of the testimony said something about previous vehicles lasting 40 years, which seems like a very long time. So if we could just understand that, that would also help us to be thinking ahead, or just more knowledgeably about the replacement pace that we should expect going forward.
Will do.
Excellent idea. That's number two items from you for our upcoming education sessions. Thank you. Any other comments, feedback from anyone? Okay. All right, let us now turn to our general manager for his monthly report. General Manager Dessou.
Morning, President Lewis, members of the board, our community partners that was here that just left. The ATU leadership was also here with us. TriMet staff, thank you all, and the public, thank you for being here. In my report this morning, we will look at March ridership. Nancy will give you an update on our budget. You'll hear the latest on how we are performing in our monthly operations analysis, as well as our monthly safety and security report. And then I'll end my report with highlights from the farewell event for our trailblazing Type 1 MAX trains that you're talking about that's operated 40 years, and really share a glimpse into what happens as we send these vehicles away. So let's start with ridership. So for the month of March, TriMet provided nearly 5.6 million rides, and that's 2.5% higher than our monthly ridership for March of 2025. So year over year, March saw a higher ridership across all modes. Our weekly ridership on bus was up by more than 2%, and then West jumped by 7.5% from last year. It's also worth noting that there was one additional weekday in March of 2026 versus March of 2025, which contributed to the higher totals. Next month, we will bring the fiscal year 2027 budget to you for adoption, and as I mentioned, upcoming cost-cutting efforts will be captured in the update you'll receive at next month's meeting before we ask for your vote. Those efforts include service changes proposed to take effect in August of 2026, and if you approve them today, another round of internal spending cuts, as well as another staffing reduction, much larger than the initial one from last fall. So because of that, the FY 2027 budget presented to you for adoption will be less than the proposed budget had been. So Chief Financial Officer Nancy Young-Oliver and Director of Budget and Forecasting Michael Doan are now here with an update on our budget scorecard. So over to you, Nancy.
Good morning again. All right. So we have all right, we'll just wait just a minute. I had the opportunity to meet with a number of you one-on-one. Not everyone, so we're going to go through the presentation that I previously shared with you. So if a little bit of it is repeated, just ask that for your patience, because not all of the board members had the opportunity for a one-on-one. All right, thank you. Advance, please. As we shared with you at our last board meeting a year ago, we presented to you that there was a $300 million financial deficit. And that was based on, the Forward Together plan, full discretionary budget additions, and a ramp up of our state of good repair. And now we're 1 year later, and we have new information. So we see that our revenues have not come in at what was originally projected. Some of our expenditures are coming in at greater inflation, and those both have a negative impact on the deficit. We have removed Forward Together and taken some service reductions in the fall of 25 and the spring here of 2026. That has a positive impact or reducing our overall financial deficit. We have removed and reduced that budgetary discretionary spending, and we've pulled back on our capital ramp up. So while we still want to increase our general fund contribution to those state of good repair activities, we're just going to ramp it up at a slower pace. Advance, please. As we shared with you last time, 1 year ago, it was a $300 million deficit. Advance, please. As our revenues have come in short of what we had originally budgeted, specifically in passenger fares, STIF funding, payroll taxes, and operating grants, we do have some miscellaneous revenues that are actually doing a little bit better, so that helps. But that has increased the deficit by $174 million. Advance. When we look at our expenditures, we have decided to move forward with the hydrogen fuel cell buses out on 82nd Street. We have some obligations in safety and security in our accessible transportation program, as well as some personnel costs, specifically adjusting that vacancy factor within the budget. That has increased our deficit by 52 million. Advance, please. We have implemented pulling back on those discretionary budget additions. We have implemented these service reductions in the fall of 25 and the spring of 26, as well as put a pause on Forward Together. And as I just mentioned, we've pulled back on that state of good repair ramp up, all resulting, advance please, in a average annual shortfall right now of 245 million. So we are making progress, not as quickly as what we wanted. Advance please. So another way to look at this is to just, in 2025, we started at 300 million. The revenues are down, so that has an impact of 174 million. Our expenses are up, that's added 52 million to give you an adjusted deficit of 526 million. As I just said, we have implemented actions, so that has decreased that deficit by 281 million, giving you 245 million deficit. Advance, please. And in a column format, it's just the same information, but just highlighting those items that we have implemented or pulled back on to amount to that 281 million. Advance, please. So that 245 million now we've put into the scorecard, and I know that you're familiar with the scorecard, but we have reset it. So up in the red box, you can see that we are targeting 245 million. At a high level, we're looking at making spending reductions. President Lewis asked us to put it in the order of where we have the most control versus the least control. So spending reductions, looking at specifically those general and administrative type expenses in the agency, we're looking to, on average, to garner 128 million. We are looking to service cuts to provide 27 million. New revenue at 45 million, and we have a remaining gap of 45 million that could be addressed either through further spending reductions, service cuts, or new revenues. That has yet to be determined, but something that we're working on. When we move down to that blue box, that's where we've rolled up our sleeves and we're putting pen to paper, and we're saying, okay, so if we are taking spending reductions, where are those spending reductions occurring? So you can see in 2027, under spending reductions, we have $60 million in there. That number is still a draft number because we're making some final decisions on what those cuts will be. That will come to you at the May board meeting. And then these service cuts, we've projected a 10 million on average cut in 2027. That, again, will come to you later today for your consideration. But that blue box, that's a plan. That's what we think that we need. Those are the targets that we need to hit now that we've put pen to paper. The green box represents what we've actually implemented. And at this time, because the board has not approved any service cuts or the 2027 budget, at this time we cannot say that we have implemented anything. But let's just pretend for a minute that the board has made some of those changes. Advance, please. If those changes were to be implemented, you could see that we would then populate that green bucket with those items, but with real numbers. Okay, right now they're just placeholds. Advance, please. So let's dig in a little bit further to our spending reductions. Again, we're looking to gain 128 million from spending reductions. This is our general and administrative from M&S, materials and supplies, as well as personnel changes. Over on the left-hand side, you see a gold bar. So that's our target, 128 million, and immediately to the right of that, you can see 0 has been implemented. Again, this is pending board approval, so we can't say it's been implemented. But what would it look like? Advance, please. So if the board were to approve the May budget or adopt the May budget, we are anticipating cuts in fiscal year 2027 from spending reductions of around $60 million. And I want to clarify on that. It's actually what we've targeted is about 73.5 million. The reason why you're only seeing 60 million in 2027 is because it doesn't happen July 1. Those cuts will happen over the course of this first quarter into 2027. So we have to take that into account. In addition, when you lay off an individual, you are paying out their vacation bank and then the appropriate actions for their sick time as well. So it does have an impact. There is still a cost in 2027. So you're not going to experience the full meal deal in 2027, but you will in 2028. When you get to 2028, that 73.5 million would be included, as well as some inflation, and then of course there will be some additional cuts. But again, this would be pending board approval. Advance, please. As you look at the service, our plan right now is to target at least 10 million in fiscal year 2027. The gold bar on the left demonstrates that we're looking for a total of 27 million from service cuts. And at this point, nothing's been implemented because that is pending board approval. Advance, please. Should the board approve the ordinance today, this is what it could look like. Upon that approval, we would be putting actual numbers into the implemented, but approximately over the 15-year period of time, that would amount to, on average, 15 million a year. Advance, please. When we look at new revenue can come from a number of sources. We're still looking at the STIF funding to see if there's the opportunity to increase STIF. But if that is a possibility, it most likely would not occur until fiscal year 2029. As you know, we will be asking the board for consideration of a fare increase in 2029. This goes along with the policy, the strategic financial plan policy, that the board said that we should bring to you at least every 4 years the consideration for a fare increase. And then you see that we have a to be determined line item. So we want to recognize that there's other opportunities out there. Maybe we haven't recognized them or identified them specifically today, but there are other opportunities out there for increased revenue. So those are to be determined. We have an internal team working on all kinds of ideas. So the gold bar here is we're looking for a minimum of 45 million from new revenue or expanded revenues of our existing resources. To the right is implemented, which is 0 at this time. And I don't have a what-if scenario for you because we're too far away. We don't have anything sitting in front of you for board approval, but just to recognize that any changes in our revenue would require approval from the board and in some instances, maybe approval from the legislature. Advance, please. So what does that mean? We are starting fiscal year 27 or ending fiscal year 2026 with a deficit of 245 million. If the board should adopt the budget in May with the way we present it, and if the board were to implement the service cuts that will be presented later today, that would decrease our deficit by 85 million, allowing us to end fiscal year 2027 with a deficit of 160 million if everything else holds true. Advance, please. There are some other factors that we wanted to bring to your attention. One is the payroll taxes. The unemployment rate of 5% is as high as it was in late spring of 2021. And the number of individuals employed at 1.3 million has essentially remained unchanged since February of 2022. The Portland Central Core, we've got a vacancy rate of 34.6%. The growing housing inventory indicates that there's less construction occurring at this time. And looking at stalled population growth. So the Tri-County population is about 0.3% less than 2020. Advance, please. Some other indicators, the City of Portland has increased their hourly parking rates by 65% since 2019. General Electric has increased 15.9% in 2024 and another 7.6% in 2026. Water, sewer, and storm rates have increased 35% over the last 4 years. According to a NASDAQ article, Portland's remote work from home workforce is double the national average. And we've already spoken earlier about the impact of that work from home. In addition, a University of Oregon study stated that out-of-state recruiters have contacted 24% of Oregon businesses, of which 68% of those companies were either moving or expanding outside of Oregon. Advance, please. We have to take a moment and look at fuel. Everybody's being hit by the fuel costs right now. What you see on the screen is a weekly average price per gallon that we've been paying, and you can see the volatility in the fuel costs. It is the highest per gallon in the last 3 years. Those prices are projected to decline sharply by the end of the year, or so we've been told. And consumption should decrease with our service impacts. But you can see just from this, so when we budget fuel costs for the year, we have to pick a rate. And so for 2026, it was $2.90. And all the information that we had at that time indicated that, that was a fair and reasonable cost, maybe even a little bit high, but who knew that at this point we'd be sitting here at $5 plus a gallon. So that is very volatile, as well as some of our other utilities, because we do not have control over those rate changes and increase. They are imposed upon us. Advance, please. Wanted to talk a little bit about Lyft ridership. We're so proud of our Lyft ridership and the services that it provides in the community, and this is not a negative, it's just factual information. On the left-hand side, when you look at the Lyft ridership, you can see that in fiscal year 2018, we were over a million rides there, and in fiscal year 2027, we've even increased beyond that. So that's great attention to our Lyft program. Individuals are utilizing that program. Where it gets a little scary for us is that the costs have basically doubled since 2016. So you can see a low there in 2021 of $19, and now in fiscal 27, we're upwards of $70. So a significant increase there. Advance, please. Is it? Yeah. So that's what's the information that we want to bring to you. We do have the slides that we presented on the budget. I don't think we need to go through that again, but we do want to open it up and see if you have any questions.
Director Graham.
Thank you for the update. I do have a question. How often are the payroll taxes reforecasted by Eco Northwest, and how often do you incorporate new forecasts into the budget?
So we get 2 formal reports from Eco Northwest a year, unless we ask for more, and we always respond to those at that time. But we also update our forecasts when we learn that there's a closure or there is a reduction in force, especially in one of, our top 25 employers. So we're in that, every day. In addition, when those revenues come in, we're also measuring it and making sure that we are on track to determine whether or not there's actually been a permanent reduction. So as employers move out of our footprint, that has a lasting impact on our employer payroll tax.
Thank you. I think it would be helpful. I mean, I know you were kind of talking about it and letting us know before the last board meeting that a reforecast was coming, but maybe to continue to talk about those changes more often throughout the year, because as I was looking at the biggest swings in the change in the gap, it's that, and it's the vacancy factor. And so I'm also wondering if you could talk a little bit about how we forecast the vacancy factor and how often is that reforecast, and how we should be thinking about that and maybe talking about that as well more frequently.
Yeah, the vacancy factor is considered once a year because we adopt a budget once a year. So we look at the elements going in there. We look at how many vacancies we do have. And as you know, we have, in the last layoff, we removed some vacant positions, and then in addition, we'll be looking to remove some additional ones. We also look to the GFOA for what is a best practice for a vacancy factor so that we make sure that we are in line with what other governmental entities do. And then in addition, we also work with, other transit properties to measure, what are they doing? So for example, T-Flex, which is a financial group for transportation, it's a great group. You've got a question, you can send it out, and boy, you just get bombarded with, information and policies and everything that you would want. So our vacancy factor is in line with best practices along with what other properties are also doing. But it's looked at annually. Did I leave anything out, Michael, on that? Okay.
Thank you. I wonder if it might, as the year goes on, you will know whether you're tracking to that or not. We would know, right? So I just wonder if there's just sort of a bit of a check-in mid-year that could say, yes, we're on target and
sure, we can do
this
that.
number or not. Because we would kind of then maybe have some idea directionally about if we're on or not. Because it is a pretty big swing. Especially for that number. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. Director Kellogg.
Thank you. Thank you for your sobering report. It's a little less impactful the second time, but nonetheless.
So talking about a big swing, I want to ask you about new revenue projections, if you can pull that slide back up. So one of those assumptions is that the amount of the STIF is going to double. Where does that assumption come from? I mean, given how we performed in the legislature.
JC? I'm going to invite JC to join me.
I think at this point in time, that's a great question. And I think at this point in time, it's a placeholder for revenue. In our conversations that we've been having with lawmakers, we are asking, and they know that we need that. Right now, it's before voters, and so we have not counted it as part of our forecast. And plus, what's in front of what the legislature actually ultimately passed was for 2 years. It was a temporary increase. I think what we want to keep doing is keep our foot on the gas to keep pressuring them to figure out a funding mechanism to help stabilize us, which would be a doubling, if not tripling, of the STIF. So that's where we're at right now. But as far as the assumptions, we're not assuming it in our forecast just yet. It's more of a placeholder as we continue to have conversations.
And so just in terms of raw dollars, what would a doubling be?
A doubling would be about
About 45.
$45 million addition. So about $100 million total is what we would potentially get from the STIF.
Okay.
Say again?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and then let's assume that all works out. We don't keep the entirety of that, right? I mean, we give it to the counties who then give it to the PTSPs.
That would be our portion. That would be our portion less what we send to the PTSPs.
Right, but if our amount doubles, then they expect double?
Yes, they do.
So really, it's not a dollar for dollar revenue. I mean, it crosses over our balance sheet, but we don't really count it.
Correct.
Okay. Other question on the unexpected or new expenses. One of those was the hydrogen piece, and that's listed for $2 million. My memory was that the hydrogen thing got pushed off. Did we pass something that committed $2 million?
Yeah, there will be another presentation on the hydrogen,
Uh-huh.
I believe later today or at the retreat.
Okay,
Yes.
that's all. Thank you.
Can I just, let me,
Yes,
on this,
please.
since we're on this slide, if it's okay?
Yes.
You know, as we are going through, we are literally kicking the can on everything that we can possibly do. And how can we do things different? And as you know, the board approved for TriMet to go out for senior lien payroll bonds. And we will be doing that. We're going to market in June. It's been a long year, a long lead up to get to the spot where we're ready to go to market. We've got our underwriters and bond counsel, and it's an all hands on deck. One of the pieces, I just want to remind the board, is a refunding, right? So maybe some of the folks that are listening, but a refunding is much like you took out a mortgage at 8% and now they're offering mortgages at 3%. So you're going to refinance for that lower rate and have a much lower house payment, right? So when we look at refunding bonds, we're looking at the same thing, right? It's at this rate, we want to get this rate so we can have an overall savings. That would be one of the things that we can put in here. You can call it new revenue, you can call it a reduction in expenditures. I don't have a dollar amount to tell you what that's going to save us because I don't know for sure until we go to the market. And we will price those bonds like June 1st, June 2nd, right in there to know what the appetite is and what is in the market. So any number I would give you today is not going to hold until I actually get to market. So just so you know, that's going to come the beginning of June. So at our June board meeting, I'll be able to tell you and give you a full report on the success of that refunding and what it's going to save us annually. Okay.
Thank you. General Manager, did you want to comment on the hydrogen or?
Yeah. So great question. A lot of momentum has taken place over this last week. And we'll be giving the board a full update either at the board retreat or at next month's board meeting. But we have a provider now that's going to provide hydrogen to us. I got a chance to sit down with the CEOs of both companies and have a conversation. The confidence is very high, very good. So there will be more of a conversation with the board about all of the hydrogen process and the way forward.
Any, Director Flowers.
Thank you so much, President Lewis. Just one more quick question. You know, I know in one of these slides, and maybe this is for Nancy, for Michael, for JC, we talk about new revenue, but in most cases, we're talking about increases in pre-existing revenue streams that we already are tethered to or rely on in some way, shape, or form. I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about like the creation of new revenue streams that are not existent at present as a part of our 3, 4, or 5 year strategy on how we fill this budget cliff. Everything from very standardized concrete things like bonds to more creative ideas. I know we were running something up the pike with an exploration of PSEF dollars. I think I've heard folks from different bodies in the transportation space reach out and talk about potential with revenue sources like the Climate Protection Program at a statewide level. Can you talk a little bit more about the creation of new revenue streams rather than just the increases to existing revenue streams?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. I believe that in our board retreat, there will be a presentation to the board on what our authority is, what are all the different avenues. And so I know that that's coming to you shortly, so that your question feeds right in line with that. JC, if you want to add.
And that's a great question, Director Flowers, and one that we have gone up one side, down the other, backwards and through. We actually have our revenue committee set up internally as part of our TriMet 2030 that we have begun going over our taxing authority and what it allows. Our taxing authority is actually pretty limited, which you will also hear, but then it's also one of those things where we want to look at some of the taxes that we do want to pursue, because we would need to get changes at the state level for us to pursue some of those changes. Like you might have heard, even the city was considering a delivery fee for Amazon packages. We don't have that taxing authority. If it is something that we want to pursue, we would need to go to the state to ask for that. And you are absolutely correct. PSEF funding, we are in constant conversations with PSEF about how their return on investment in transit actually gets them a lot farther toward their goal. I would also note we've had conversations with PBOT around the transportation user fee and how can TriMet benefit from some of that, especially providing potentially increase in service in equity communities. So we're looking under every stone. Of course, internally there are those are larger pots of money. Internally, it's also looking at how do we go after additional advertising? How are some of these other revenue streams that we can bolster as well? Every little bit counts.
President.
Thank you.
Could I just touch? Yeah. Great question, Director Flowers. 3 things that is coming up for the May 13th board retreat. One, we are going to have a conversation around clarifying the TriMet Board Authority as what was stated. So we're going to talk about revenue generation, statutory taxing, fee authority. We're going to talk about when voter versus board approval is required, and another conversation around the legal and statutory constraints that we're faced with. Also, I'll be talking with you and the president. We would like for you to lead a conversation around our current revenues and new revenues as we move forward, because you and I have had some really good conversation around this, around state funding opportunities, around payroll tax incremental increases, also fare increases, bond increases, property tax. But the other big piece is what you've brought up is other revenue generating ideas to have that conversation with the board. So looking forward for a really good conversation, about a 2.5 hour conversation on the 13th.
Okay, you can continue with your report.
So Nancy and Michael, thanks for the update. JC as well. Now I'd like to turn our monthly operations analysis report. Let me bring in Executive Director of Planning, Alan Leto, and Senior Analyst for Operations and Planning, Catherine Keeling, to give us an update.
Thank you, Sam. Les Spittler, who normally does this report, is on vacation, so he delegated up, and I'm here. We only have one microphone, so we're going to do it a little bit different, and Catherine's going to give the bulk of the presentation, and I'm just here to support.
Good morning, President Lewis and members of the board. We're here this morning to present the monthly operations analysis for March 2026. For our ridership overview, we had positive year-over-year changes for Bus, MAX, ATP, and WES. As Sam mentioned, reporting month March 2026 does have one more weekday than the year-over-year reference month of March 2025. However, the calculated weekly averages are unbiased by those shifts in number of day types, and those figures also show positive growth over year prior. Next slide. On this modal breakdown, the lines show trends of the monthly totals, and for the first 3 months of this calendar year, ridership has generally been at or above year prior. Next slide. Everything looks pretty good for bus operations for the month of March. The boarding rides per revenue hour metric is an indicator of the productivity of our service, extremely relevant, and we're happy to be above where we were a year ago. The next metric I would like to highlight is mean distance between failure. March saw a decrease from February, but a 61% increase over March of 2025. March MDBF was impacted by engine issues, but there were no major failures across the board. The bus maintenance team is working hard to address seasonal pressures to keep this metric more consistent. But all in all, this metric is above target and above where we were a year prior, and that's great improvement. Next slide, please. For MAX, on-time performance has exceeded target for the 4th consecutive month, signaling the durability of these operational improvements. Our rail transportation and rail equipment maintenance teams have sustained focus on getting the trains out of the yards in time. And my department, Operations Analysis and Essential Data, is continuing to refine and tailor the reports that detail when and where any issues of schedule adherence occur. So TriMet can keep this metric above the target. For mean distance between failure, it's a very similar story to buses MDBF, where March is a cool off from an exceptional performance in February, but the metric still lands higher than last year and still above target. Next slide. For accessible transportation programs, I'd like to address the increase in complaints. In March, the ATP leadership team sent out communications to all active customers about a number of program changes that will occur, mainly regarding changes from their baseline service going from door to curb. This has led in a significant spike in calls into the call center, which has consequently led to longer hold times for customers. They are working with TransDev, their call center contractor, to move staff around in order to accommodate this increase in call volume. They also sent out a first round of suspension notices for customers during March in accordance with TriMet's no-show policy. This policy has been in place for quite some time, going back to the mid-2010s, but ATP leadership chose not to enforce it during COVID for obvious reasons, and were unable to start enforcement again due to the administrative time it took to administer the policy itself. But now they have an automated system in place that helps us to actually enforce this policy. No-show policies are an industry best practice to cut down on wasting resources by sending buses out to customers who do not take the trip, and helps them to better maintain our on-time performance for the program as a whole. But this, however, also likely contributed to the increase in complaints. Next slide. For WES, the metrics are within normal ranges. Boarding rides per revenue hour is a tick above last year, and beyond that, WES is just delivering reliable service and excellent performance. Next slide. Lastly, we have the 12-month look back with its metrics and definitions. Thank you for your time this morning. This concludes our overview.
Any questions from the board for the ridership and monthly operation analysis report? Seeing none, back to you, General Manager.
Thank you both for the presentation. Next this morning, Chief Safety and Security Officer Andrew Wilson will present the monthly safety and security report, including an exciting update on our blue light security phones, which you heard a little bit earlier about. So over to you, Andrew.
All right, I probably built this up too much at this point, but yeah, we're going to be all right. So good morning, President Lewis and TriMet Board of Directors. Good to see you today. Just providing you an overview, an update. I was not here last month, but I was actually in an FTA meeting, but it's good to be back here with you. So if we could look at that first slide, show you fair enforcement activity. You might remember we talked about how we were down some customer safety supervisors. We also lost some leadership during that time with Pat Williams and had some very significant leadership transitions. Tommy and others have really stepped up in this space, and we're starting to get back to normal in this fair enforcement activity. There's actually fair enforcement or a fair survey that's actually taking place right now. You remember we do that annually, and the information so far is pretty favorable. So looking forward to sharing that with you in a future meeting. But you can see we're ticking back up, which is good. If we go to the next slide, we've really been working with the team on trying to make sure that we are issuing citations where necessary. And so you're starting to see that actually come back up a little bit. Just in general, more code enforcement activity. But we do cite here at TriMet. It is a paid fare system, and so we're working on some of those elements, and you're starting to see that a little bit more balancing in that approach, which will take place over time. And I will just say, those of you that remember past Oregonian articles, other things related to the unfairness of our fair and code enforcement, or at least that depiction of that at that time, we do not get those same complaints now, and I think we should really be proud of the work that's done out there in a very unbiased way and impacting the system in a positive way to ensure safety for all the riders. So those are good things. Safety response team, you can see we're ticking back up a little bit there as well. This is an incredible team. They do incredible work on our system. I've got a lot of beloved team members out there that have been with us for a very long time. So we do support them, and we really encourage their activities out there on the system. And they do good work for our community. Sam and I and JC were just in a meeting with the mayor talking about how much the safety response team does for our community, and it's a very well-recognized group. And you could see kind of those top efforts. They're addressing a lot of needs that just were not there 5 or 6 years ago, and you guys know that from my prior reports, but that's just kind of where we're at today. So, without further ado, we'll talk about blue lights. You know, we had actually envisioned getting this, the 90 that we had slated to achieve out on the system done at the end of this calendar year. We're actually going to be able to do it at the end of this fiscal year, so these will be all up in June. And I'm really, really proud of the team's efforts here. I'll just say before I celebrate them that these phones are achieving things that we never thought possible in this outbound phone call thing, which is going to be, I think, a thing here at TriMet. I talked about it earlier, but so Blue Light Phone is obviously a way for us to be able to, community members to communicate directly with the Security Operations Center. Remember, replacing our pay phones in the past. But they do have a camera on them, a very high, quality camera, and they also have a speaker. And that speaker, you can actually call and make an outbound phone call. And our Security Operations Center, which is now 24 hours a day, is using these. There's usually 2 to 3 at a platform. There's actually one in the Robertson Tunnel. Thomas, Kim, next time you're there with the kids. So that was kind of more of a challenge. But they're out there, and we actually can talk to the platform and communicate codes, remind them that this is a closed station, those types of things. Things that we used to get us in trouble in terms of security incidents back in the past, where we had empty stations or where we don't have a physical presence. And so as we look at budget reductions this year, this is giving us a good capability to do a force multiplier and be able to kind of moderate behaviors remotely at some of our stations and platforms. It also shows folks that we have camera systems, and the riders that are out there are listening to us talk, and they're happy about that. So those are the types of things that are achievable. And of course, I do have some, if we go to the next slide, these are some of those figures, and you can kind of see the amount of outgoing and incoming calls. We're tracking this, and we're developing, good practices around this too, kind of more standardization in terms of what's communicated, rules, and so forth. So it's a very good technology for us to engage in, and I think it's very visible in terms of what we're doing out there on the system to provide more for our customers in terms of the safety and security space. This program was envisioned to take a lot longer. It was also supposed to be a lot more expensive. And this is a real innovation win here at TriMet, and there's an incredible amount of people that have been a part of this effort. And I honestly think it's gone extraordinarily easily, given how much you have to do out on a platform to connect electronics and work with different partners. And I just want to celebrate right now on the IT team. Obviously, appreciate Ethan's leadership over that space, but on his team, Chris Skinner, Alex Vasquez, and Jason Nett have been just doing phenomenal work on this. Janet Tanberg as well as part of the IT team. On the FairCom team, which actually report up through the finance group, Michael Dawkins, who actually just recently retired, Justin Garrity, and I would always be remiss if I didn't share my security project manager, 32-year veteran, Shauna Huffman, who is an institution here at TriMet. And she's my right hand most days. So really appreciate their work in getting this done. So that is your blue light update. Well, there's one more slide, and I'll show you this because I think it's a little hard to read because this is a big system that we operate. But you can see what that actually looks like in practice out on the system. And so these are very visible, and you're going to hear probably from community members, and as you ride the system, you're going to see this. Remember that when one of those is represented at a station, there's usually 2 phones at each station, so it's even a little bit more dramatic than that. And we're working on some other areas to even increase this with partners that on properties that we don't own as this technology becomes more available. So this is a real good thing for our community. So that's your blue light update. But I do have another one. There are actually a couple more. Elevator access control update. We've been talking about this for a while. Do you remember we did the 3 elevators on the Banfield, our oldest alignment there? So you can see on there Hollywood 60th and 82nd. Those are fully installed, getting great feedback, having better service reliability for those elevators. So we have worked with another great team who has enhanced that by putting them in at 9 more locations, which are on your map. And so those will be done this year, and this is a real big lift for us, but it also, has gone really well because there's a great team of people working on this, and it's an innovation here at TriMet that I think we're pretty excited about. We offered this to the country as well, when we started this process, and it's been going on for about 3 or 4 years. I think, Shelley, you were a part of some of those early conversations on this, and so we're excited to see this out there. It's going to make us a safer system and more accessible for those that need our elevator systems every single day. Not folks that are going to do things in them that is not what we designed them for, if we'll just leave it there. So that's just another update. And the last slide on that, you can kind of see what that technology looks like. I encourage you to use it. You'll see that person actually has a credit card because, again, that's you can use your Apple Pay just to get in there as well. So it's easy to use, but it does you have to prove that you're a paid fair rider. You're not just getting in there to do other stuff. So, and lastly, I'll give you an update on our Security Operations Center. You can see this has slowly been growing. It's 24 hours. We're actually hiring an additional 4 TriMet employees in this room to make sure that we've got adequate staffing. But you can see that this is actually ticked up, and this is excellent for us because what this means is this is riders communicating with us their concerns. So we're learning as we go the ways we can meet safety needs even better daily through our Security Operations Center, and we're tracking that data. And it's also giving us an ability to get back out there and address security needs in real time. So anyway, I just say this, please keep using the Rider tools yourself. Tell your friends, 238-RIDE. We really want this to become part of the experience, that you can automatically reach out to somebody when you see a security incident. And you saw me mention that this morning in the safety briefing as well. So I think that's all for me, but I'll leave it open for questions. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. Questions from the board, and I'll go last. I do have a question. Director Frisbee.
Thank you. I actually, are they working? Yes, okay. I actually have a series of questions, so I can ask one and go later. Or, okay, I'm just gonna load them for you and you can, I appreciated your note about the fair enforcement efforts and how we've changed some of our protocols and work, and I think it might be helpful for folks watching and for the board if you could give us a 30-second reminder of how those protocols changed.
Yeah, no.
Since we got complaints. Wait, I'll give you my 4 questions and then you can just.
Gotcha.
My second question is, I was noticing when I was going through the packet last night, there's 3 or 4 months when there is a huge difference between the outgoing versus incoming blue light phone calls. The rest of the time, they're almost exactly matched. And I just didn't know if you had any insight into that. And then my third question, which is, I think if I'm being honest, probably a little bit more of a comment, is, and I love the elevator access program. I love getting the updates on it and having it in combination with the testimony we heard this morning. And then I think all of the board members have received emails from the Yards Tenants Union. Just flagged for me that perhaps there is an opportunity here for TriMet to support what sounds like the responsibility of a private landlord to ensure that there is access to the system that they have already committed to provide. And so if that private landlord needs help or support, or maybe some reminders about how public sector agencies can innovate to help and provide access, that seems like something we might be able to do. And then I will put my tiny little push pin in that I always do for the Bob Stacy elevators, which I know are owned by PBOT, and they provide universal access, not just transit access. But that is a challenge for a lot of folks I know in my district, getting to the MAX station there when those elevators are down. And so I hope that someday there is a way that we and PBOT can work together to use this program to help find a solution.
Great questions. Does that work? Okay. Yeah, so on fair enforcement, 30 seconds. We created a very, very bias-proof system in the sense of we go through the entire bus and train. Some of you have been out there on the system with me and seen this in practice. Everybody is contacted. And it is done in a professional and customer service-oriented way. You'll see there's a lot of warnings because we do give people opportunities to get off the system and pay, and but we do communicate that we have to issue a citation if this is happening multiple times. So it is done in a very unbiased, fair way, and I think the team should really be commended for that. I could go into more detail, but that's kind of the high-level disclaimer. And as far as the sort of blip in outgoing phone calls, we actually did take a look at that. What I heard from my Security Operations Center manager, Chad Knowles, who's here today, actually was helping with the elevator here and getting people up and down, and it is his 55th birthday today, so that you know. So happy birthday to Chad. But he's going to hate me for that one. But he did take a look at this, and we were talking about it. And what we attribute that mostly to is in the colder weather, we see less buildup of people out on the system and communicating to them. And so that's where we think a lot of that outgoing dip kind of occurred, as we didn't see quite as much buildup out on the system during cold weather events. But as, hours start to increase, people hang out on our platform a little later into the evening, with better weather and better sunlight and that sort of thing, we are engaging again and telling people they need to vacate the platform. So that's most of that. That number will, I think, increase for a time, but it may eventually decrease. And I say that because we have more people in that room and more people monitoring than ever before. So I think you'd expect that to come up, but we'll be able to monitor this. And I'm going to give this to you on a monthly basis, too, so we can keep talking about it. And then sharing with others our technologies. We're really good with this, and I have had conversations with PBOT. The problem that a lot of the community members that are going to have that we don't have is we have a paid fare system that we can kind of engage on, right? And so what is it that they're proving to get into the elevator for access? But there's ideas out there, and there's ways to innovate around that. even things, potentially community access cards, folks that actually are in that area on a regular basis. But there's ways to think about that type of thing. So, but we do share, and if you have any people you want us to, my team, to sort of talk to, we'd love to talk with them. And we do that pretty regularly. Which reminds me, I don't know that I talked about blue light phones, but I do want to talk about, Sam, I promise I'm going to get off of this thing. But some people on this elevator access control, Shelley Devine herself in the very beginning, but AJ O'Connor in our IT department, Andy McLennan, Greg LaRoe and Sophia Franklin were instrumental. Those folks work for Nancy. And our two project managers on this, again, Shauna Huffman, I mentioned her earlier, but Nana Ochia has done an incredible job on this project, and she works for Jamie in engineering and construction, and she's done an incredible job too. So again, I just want to reference, this is always a team effort. There's a team in the background, but there's folks out there innovating. Does that answer all of them? Okay. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to, if I'd have not referenced those people, come on now.
Thank you. Let's see, I saw another hand up. Nope. Oh, okay. Director Kellogg.
Thank you. Give this a try. I think we're back to normal operations.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to stress the piece about fare evasion, especially as we're talking about budget today and we're scrapping for every dollar we can to get to that $45 million. I don't think we have a number on what we lose to fare evasion every year, but I'm guessing it's, 7 figures, maybe even 8, right?
Yeah, it's in that range.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make my monthly pitch for folks to go out on a fare enforcement mission with Andrew and his gang, because our process for issuing citations and getting information is far from perfect. And there's a lot of improvements that we could make there. So just my pen for future reference. Thank you.
All right, any other? Okay, Director Flowers.
Now I got it up on purpose.
Okay.
So I just want to, what Director Kellogg said made me think of something. I know that we are in an austere environment, one that's forcing us to tighten our belts, to scrape and pick up every penny that we see laying on the ground. But I don't want us in moments like these to lose sight of the conversation about what the ideal transit system would look like, and what the pursuit of that ideal looks like long-term for us. And this might not be a 2, 3, even 5-year goal for us. Maybe it's a 15-year goal. But in my mind, when I think about that ideal system, it'd be a system where nobody has to pay to get on TriMet in any capacity or another. So I just want to weave the conversation we're having about fare evasion and the collection of those dollars into broader conversations we're having about new revenue streams, about the way that we finance our system and the things that we are aiming to finance. Because I think what's always differentiated us from our peer institutions on a national level has been we've been at the frontier of innovation in the space. And I don't want us to lose that positioning despite the challenges that we're facing on a budgetary level right now.
Thank you. All right, I have my few questions, and it's on the note of innovation. So safety and security now has a new toy, which is the blue lights, and similar to Director Frisbee, I was looking at the report and saw the spikes, because I didn't know what ingoing and outgoing, I kind of assumed I knew what it was. And what came to mind was a system that TriMet now has its own 911 system. It's a mini version, but it has a 911 system, which down the road will require call-outs. And so is there a plan, and we can have an education session on it, but is there a plan? Because like the spikes, when summer comes, people will press that button for issues of a missing child. And so I'm curious, because when you have a system with a 911 type function, it becomes a call out to fire, to the police. And so what is the long-term goal of TriMet managing when we suddenly balloon with all those calls? I mean, the calls right now are, on our platform, but mother comes up, her child's been hurt. Have we set a relationship with, EMTs to respond? It's going to grow. I guess that's what I'm saying. And so down the road, when it happens, and now that it's in place, it will. I'd like to know what the big picture plan is, because it's going to grow, which requires more dollars, more staffing, and then the relationship that we have with the responders.
Yeah, I think that those are great points, and we don't take these kinds of things lightly. We do spend a lot of time, we even in just instituting this, making sure that the beginning, if you press one of those buttons, the first things that says is we encourage you to call 911 if it's an emergent event. So, because, everybody has a phone. Generally, they're hopefully contacting 911, and we don't want to stand in the way of them contacting emergency services. Now, having said that, we have dispatch capability with security personnel and cleaners and others that can address a lot of the kind of type 2 kind of issues that we see out there that are more kind of rider comfortability a lot of times. So, and I will tell you, the call volume has not been anything that's been insurmountable at this point. We don't leave people on hold. Because again, people have, cell phones, they'll contact other ways too in other departments. But I do think that your point is right in the sense that we cannot take all volume related to emergency services for the area. And so we do encourage 911, but I'll say this, that our teams do have a very good relationship, similar to OCC, with our transit police and BOEC, to be able to route quickly any situation that is beyond.
All right, Andrew, thanks for the update. Good update there. So finally this morning, I would like for us to just take a look at the send-off for the oldest light rail vehicles. 40 years and a significant time frame, no matter how you looked at it. And this past weekend, we really bid farewell to our original MAX trains after nearly 40 years of service. There were nearly 3,000 people at the park who turned out for the retirement event that we had on the Type 1 on Saturday at Holiday Park. So there was riders, people from the public, people that were not train enthusiasts that was there. We had retirees, and we had a lot of employees there. So people who worked on the Type 1s were there when we branded the new service that went out. They reminisced about it, and they really said goodbye to the original MAX train. I had everybody there signing the train, actually. We were putting our name on the side of it. But if you think about the Type 1, it entered service back on September 5th, 1986, with the introduction of TriMet's MAX light rail system. And it was a historic day. Some of the pictures that you see up on the screen, it really put Portland on the map as a place where alternative forms of transportation work well, getting people out of their cars, reducing traffic, congestions, improving air quality, and really making our region a better place for everyone to both live and work. The Type 1 longevity is a testament to our TriMet mechanics and engineers who worked on them throughout the years. And the Type 1 officially left service about 140 days or so shy of rolling past their 40th year on the rails. So if you think about that, that's a long time of having that very first version of service that's out there. They served riders in our region well over decades. So I would like for you, because it was touching to me, to take a look at what happens to these trains as they reach their end of life, end of line. So please roll the video.
Decommissioning in Type 1s is a little bit bittersweet. They have been a workhorse for TriMet for nearly 40 years. That said, they were only expected to run for about 30 years, so we've gotten an extra 10 years out of these cars. These trains have to be recycled, and we've partnered with Radius Recycling here in Portland, Oregon. After the train rolls off, they have large equipment that splits it into 2 or 3 sections, and then basically the trucks and the car body are broken down into smaller and smaller bits. All the steel that's in here is sorted and organized and sent over to another facility where they make rebar that hopefully goes back into our community. We donated LRV 101 to a local museum. You can go see LRV 101 down Brooks, Oregon. These cars are designed in an era that the components aren't available anymore. The cars are ready for their retirement. It's time to transition and move on. We have a new fleet to replace them. The Type 6 LRVs are the direct replacement for the Type 1s. They will be just as reliable, if not more reliable, than the Type 1s as we move into the future.
Public Affairs put a really good event on. We had Jan Campbell that was there. She was an advocate from the beginning. We had one of our first Max drivers, Type 1 drivers that was there, and one of the first mechanics that actually showed up. So really good event, and I just wanted to share with you and farewell it with the board as we move forward. So one other point I want to make today, and I'll be remiss if I didn't. Today is National Administrative Professionals Day, and I want to just celebrate and recognize the contributions of our team. And this is to all of TriMet administrative professionals in the TriMet world. In the transit world, we talk a lot about reliability and efficiency. While our buses and trains move the public, it's our administrative professionals who move the organization. And you are the engineers behind our scheduling, the dispatchers behind our communication, and a steady hand that keep our offices running on time. Your dedication ensures that I and the entire leadership team stay on track so that we can serve our community. So thank you for your tireless professionalism and the dedication that you bring to TriMet. I want to say that we simply could not reach our destination without you. So big round of applause, guys. And with that, President Lewis, I'm completed.
Thank you. I don't know if you set a record, but excellent report, and we enjoyed it, especially Andrew's. Yes, all of the executives' reports. Thank you. Okay, turning the page on to our consent agenda. Let us turn to the items appearing on the consent agenda, which are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda consists of 2 items: approving the minutes from our last meeting of March 25th, 2026, and the resolution directing that all ordinances be read by title only. Does any director wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to approve the items that are remaining and still on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second. We'll now have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move to our resolutions on our regular agenda. The board will now first convene as our TriMet Contract Review Board, or the TCRB, to consider Resolution 260415, authorizing an exemption from low bid requirements to procure construction services for the TV Highway Transit and Safety Project. Oregon Public Contracting Law and our TCRB rules allow the board, in its role as the TCRB, to exempt a contract procurement from the low bid process so that TriMet may consider other factors in addition to price in awarding a contract. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis. Members of the board, the Tualatin Valley Highway Corridor connects communities of Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, Aloha, and Beaverton. And it's been a long top regional priority for major transit investment in that corridor. And at Metro, TriMet, ODOT, and local jurisdictions I mentioned partnered to develop the TV Highway Transit and Safety Project. The project follows a 16.2-mile route and would bring TriMet FX, or Frequent Express, line to the west side. Tools like signal priority and other treatments would speed up buses so transit service is a more reliable and convenient option. Not only that, the project plans much needed pedestrian safety and accessibility improvements for the corridor. Regional partners have already advanced the project to about 15% design, and as it moves to 30% design, TriMet plans to issue an RFP to bring on a CMGC. This resolution requests an exemption from the low bid process to instead allow for a competitive RFP process for the CMGC selection. This approach, which uses broader criteria than price alone, will help ensure selection of the right contractor with the skills and experience needed to deliver such a project successfully. The cost of the CMGC services, which will be procured through this low bid exemption, is included in the proposed FY27 Engineering and Construction Division budget and will be included in future years' budgets. The services will not be procured until FY 2027. As the TriMet Contract Review Board, I recommend your approval.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 260415?
So moved.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment, feedback, before we vote? Okay, seeing and hearing none. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. This completes and adjourns the TCRB, and we will reconvene our regular board meeting. Excuse me. We will now consider Resolution 260416, authorizing a construction manager general contractor service with GE Dunn Construction Company for the Powell Fuel Cell Electric Bus Infrastructure Project. A lot of words there. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. TriMet received a low or no emissions grant that supports the Powell Fuel Cell Electric Bus Infrastructure Project. That federal grant was fully executed in May 2025. The grant covers funds for a number of elements for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. Specific to this resolution, the grant funding will be used for modifications to the Powell Operations Facility, including installing a hydrogen fueling station. These investments are necessary to maintain and fuel a new fleet of fuel cell battery electric buses at Powell for the future FX service coming to 82nd Avenue. The Powell Fuel Cell Electric Bus Infrastructure Project is complex and highly specialized. It requires exclusive expertise and applications that include hydrogen, fueling systems, permitting, detection systems, and other specialty services. The complexity, strict budget, and schedule requirements require selection of a contractor with the technical capabilities to keep the facility operational through construction and the project on track for FX service to begin in 2029. Today's resolution asks the board to approve the award of the CMGC to J.E. Dunn with an initial authorization of $292,000, $292,795 for pre-construction services only. During the pre-construction phase, TriMet staff will work closely with J.E. Dunn to develop a total contract price that aligns with our internal estimates and the budget and the project budget. Once the price is established, we will return to the board with a resolution requesting authorization for the full construction contract. So in September 2025, the board approved a resolution exempting the project from the low bid requirements. A competitive RFP process identified J.E. Dunn's proposal as the best and highest value for TriMet. The budget for the project is included in the Maintenance Division 5-year capital improvement plan and future funding forecasts, and I recommend your approval. Again, this is for design.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 260416? Is there a second? Second, okay. It has been moved and it's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment on, before we vote? Yes, Director Kellogg.
Thank you. Just very briefly, you said just design. So is this 100% covered by the grant you were talking about?
Let me just verify. Kate or Michael? Or Jamie? Okay. One of you. Yeah. Let me verify here. Yeah.
Yes, this is for design and for pre-construction services, and it's included in both the low-no grant and both fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 budgets.
Covers 100% of the cost?
Yep.
Okay. What are we looking at after design is over in terms of just ballpark, construction, all those costs together?
That's a great question. Now, I'm going to call a friend.
Hello, Scott Tillner. I'll be the project manager for this project. What was the question?
So we're talking about a couple $100,000 for design, which gets us to phase construction, I assume. What's that expected to cost, just ballpark? Are we talking 10 million, 100 million?
The grant covers roughly about 19 million.
Okay, and will that be 100% of the cost?
Yep.
Oh,
yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No discussion? Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing and hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, friend. We like having friends close by. Okay. Okay, next, the board will have the second reading and vote on Ordinance 382. I will now request our General Counsel Devine to read the Ordinance 382 by title only.
Thank you, President Lewis. Ordinance number 382 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, adopting FY 2027 service changes, revising route designations, and amending TriMet Code Chapter 22. This is the second reading.
General Manager, following the second reading, do you have any comments on Ordinance 382?
I do. Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. The plan that comes before you today reflects about 9 months of very challenging work. And I just want to thank the staff today, employees and the thousands of TriMet riders for standing by us and walking with us as we navigate this process. So I really appreciate that. As general manager of TriMet and a 34-year veteran of this transportation industry, it goes without saying that making changes like these are never easy. And I want to state that again. I want to stress to you again what I've stressed to you before, is that I do not want to do this. This is something that I didn't come here to cut service at TriMet. And not a single person in this room from the staff wants to do this, to include yourself as we move forward. But I do want to say that we are all in agreement that something must be done to restore TriMet's financial footing. So we've got to do something to be able to move our footing so that we're able to provide transit services today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. So if you approve the FY27 service plan, today the next step will be to incorporate the plan and the savings it affords into the budget that will come before you for the adoption next month. So TriMet Board of Directors, I'll turn it over to you for your vote.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to adopt Ordinance 382?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, thank you. It has been moved and second that we adopt the ordinance. As you know, we have already had public hearing on Ordinance 382 last month. Do any members of the board have any questions or comments regarding Ordinance 382 before we vote? Okay. 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 Director
Thank you.
Kim?
It's a devastating cut we have to make so that we can continue to exist and provide services. I do look forward to a day when we are at a better financial health and sustainable better financial health, where we can add back services that are even better, as alluded by Alan this morning. So I just wanted to share that sentiment, and those folks who are affected by this cut are in my heart. And I look forward to, the charge that we have, especially next month, about the revenues and other things that we can do better so that our riders wouldn't have to have this life-changing circumstance. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Director Director Flowers?
Yeah, I share everybody's sentiment in terms of how difficult this decision has been to come to for everybody involved. I understand the tremendous amount of work that staff have put into preparing scenario after scenario, hosting workshops, trying to figure out ways we can reconfigure our agency internally, reconfigure our system externally to make this work. My line of work is in government affairs, community-based power building, and political strategy. And I think that it would be easier for me to come to a yes vote on this if I felt like we had really and truly exhausted every conceivable option for the exploration of new revenue. And not just, knocking on folks' doors and asking what they're okay with, but if we had come up with a comprehensive strategy that pulled our riders, that pulled our institutional partners, that pulled our political supporters into the fold of a unified coalition that made a bold and concerted push to close this gap via other means. To date, I don't feel like we have done that. And I feel like I've been up here beating a dead horse for the past 7-8 months, saying again and again, we need to think bigger about the way that we're having this conversation about revenue. I know that this ordinance is critical to the maintenance of our long-term financial health as an agency. I also know that our failure to adopt this ordinance today would put us in a potentially graver situation in 2027 and in 2028, right? If we were unable to turn some new stone and figure out a way to fill this gap. However, I also know that we are going to be in that situation regardless, right? If we vote to approve this ordinance today, cutting our service across our system and reconfiguring a number of lines, we are going to be right back here a year from now voting to approve additional cuts to our system next year. The point I'm making is that the cuts are going to be severe and extended regardless of what we do. My assertion from a strategic perspective and from the perspective of somebody who grew up riding on and relying on this system is that we would be better served politically and otherwise by holding off on making these cuts to our system at this moment. For that reason, I'll be a no vote today. I'm not trying to exert any type of pressure on my peers to vote differently, but I wanted to, at the very least, voice that for the record, while also saying how deeply I appreciate each and every one of you on the staff side at TriMet. Sam, Shelley, the entire team, my fellow board members, you guys are doing tremendously difficult work. I know how much y'all care about each and every person that relies on our system. So please don't take this as an affront to you folks and all the effort that you've put into this, as much as it is, in my mind, a difference of opinion on the strategy that we should take as an agency.
Thank you, Director Flowers. At this time, we will now have a roll call vote from ordinance.
You got comments.
Oh, another one? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, Director Frisbee and then Director Kellogg.
Proceed.
I appreciate and in many ways sympathize and agree with the comments from Director Flowers. I want to start, I don't think it needs to be said again that none of us want to be here. We've all said that 1,000 times. These sorts of cuts are brutal and devastating, for people who are deeply dependent on the system, for people who choose to ride the system, for people who think that someday they might want to think about choosing to ride the system. These will impact everyone. I'm seeing the team here, and I want to express my deep appreciation for your work, and Jennifer and the engagement team as well. I think this process was done really thoughtfully. I was amazed and always appreciative of your willingness to respond to everyone who popped up with any question, and it is always really wonderful to be with folks who are like, oh yeah, the Albertsons on the corner there. Well, here's how we want to serve it. It is a heartening reminder of how committed you are to our community and how deeply you know and understand these routes. So thank you. I also share some of Director Flowers' concerns around our political strategy in this work and the way that we are approaching the long-term questions. I think we heard from our Executive Director of Planning and Policy this morning in response to some of the TSEC questions. The world of transit looks fundamentally different. That's not just an us problem. That is a problem across the country, and it is an opportunity. And I think the question of how do we serve the needs of our community in this new world requires a rethinking of the way that we run our bus lines, the way that the MAX operates, the way that we connect with folks across the region. And I think I have been harping on this for a while. I am hopeful now that we are through this rough 9-month push, that we have time to think about a longer-term approach to the way we serve the system. I also think when we look at revenue, it is very clear the revenue we have is not, we as we said, we will be back every year making these cuts until we're running one bus line up and down Burnside, and I'm driving it. That's not a great situation. As a volunteer rider, I will be retired at that point, driving the bus. Doug, if you're still around, we're going to need you to bust off your CDL. We need a different plan. That has to be dependent on a different role from the state, and that has to be dependent on a different role in the region. And we need to, I hear us saying we've exhausted and looked at every option. I think respectfully, there are things we have not considered. Those would not solve our problem today. But they are long-term things that we need to be looking at and thinking about more aggressively and more holistically. I think we struggle in that we have a timing challenge right now. We need to make these cuts now. Possibly we need to make the cuts that we are considering next year so that we can rebuild and have the stability from which to build a stronger, newer system. But I am pushing us, and I want to echo the sentiment from Director Flowers. The way that we're thinking about that bigger system right now is not sufficient. And that, I think, is both from a service approach and a sort of transit policy approach and from a revenue approach. I think we are all here, and that is not, it's not because we don't care, it's because we've all been plugging holes. And I hope the board is here. I know my colleagues, we're all deeply invested. We're here to support this agency and this team in doing this work.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director Frisbee. Director Kellogg.
Thank you, President Lewis. So I first want to start by thanking Tom, who I've become intimately familiar with over the last few months. We went to several city council meetings together, and I can't thank him and his team enough for being nimble. We started out with some pretty draconian cuts in my district, and through some other service providers and some innovation, we've lessened that burden considerably. So I want to thank you for your efforts on that. Overall, we've been talking about service cuts for quite a while, and the approach has been to do the least amount of damage to the fewest people, right? Because we realize in some instances here, we're taking away people's transit. And I thought it was bad with the 96 in my district. We remember several people came and provided very good testimony until I heard from the gentleman this morning on the obituary of the 17. So I don't know whose district's that in, but so I just wanted to take a moment to address the folks on the 96 who did take the time out, several meetings to come here. I'm sorry. I did all I could to keep your service that you've had for 30 plus years. It's an actual express bus that goes from Tualatin to downtown in, depending on traffic, 20 minutes, right? And now that trip is going to be longer. We're not entirely sure how much longer, but the worst estimates are time's going to double. People are going to stop taking the bus, and we're going to see reduced ridership, right? Worst case scenario. But on the flip side of that, the cost of that service change is going to improve our financial position by over $1 million, right? And so while I appreciate the comments, especially yours, Director Flowers, I'm not struggling over this vote because I'm not voting on how things ought to be, but how they are. And if we do not put these cuts in place now, the fiscal cliff just gets closer, right? And the absolute worst part of this is that if the trend doesn't change, the cuts that we're coming back to next year, you ain't seen nothing yet. They're going to be bad. So, yes, I suggest we all put our heads together and figure out a way to avoid having to do those draconian cuts next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Other comments? Getting a little emotional myself here, but I'm just going to move on. We will now have a roll call vote on Ordinance 3A2, and I will ask General Counsel Devine to call the roll.
Thank you, President Lewis. We'll start at this end with Director Kim,
Yes.
Director Frisbee. Yes. Director Kellogg.
Aye.
Director Graham. Director Flowers.
No.
Director Lewis.
Aye.
Ordinance 382 passes.
Thank you. Any ending comments? No? We're good? Okay. That adjourns our business meeting for today. That concludes, sorry. Our business for today, to remind the board, we do have a board retreat, May 13th at 9 o'clock here in the boardroom. I have spoke with 1 or 2 board members that will be part of that. Sorry, lost at words here. Agenda for our board, for our retreat. Our next business board meeting will be Wednesday, May 22nd in our here in our boardroom. At this time, the board's April business meeting is adjourned.